Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Wolf Naruto was in love with Hana and forced to marriage her part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. A young boy no more than 6 ran through the underbrush. His blonde hair was matted with dry blood, his clothes were torn, and he was covered in bruises and cuts. But it was his eyes that showed just how hard his life had been. Eyes filled with loneliness, pain, and sadness. Why? He thought, why me? What did I ever do to them? That's when he saw what he had stumbled onto. There standing before him was a wolf. It was huge, with silver fur, and a mouth full of teeth that could easily tear him to shreds. The moonlight glinted off its gold eyes. Eyes that showed curiosity, and was that pity he saw in its eyes? No, it couldn't be, could it? He flinched as it jerked its head up. Cries of demon and hell spawn could be heard from over the hill. The wolf walked over to him and looked into his eyes. It snorted, obviously it had found what it was looking for. Then it jerked its head over its shoulder and started walking off. Did it want him to follow? He didn't know. Should he? It's a wolf. Only then did he notice that it had stopped at the edge of the clearing. It jerked its head again. This was the weirdest thing to ever happen to him. He heard the villagers getting closer. The wolf actually looked exasperated. That had to be the weirdest face he had ever seen on a wolf. Not that he had seen many, mind you. It looked at him once more and left. Then he heard the villagers clomping through the bushes. Okay, I chose life. That was it. No note, no body, and no blood, nothing. He just disappeared. That was the last the Leaf Village ever heard of Uzumaki Naruto. At least that's what they thought. Oh, how pathetic. Justice is sweet. Time skip. 6 years. All was silent. It was quiet and relaxing. There was nothing in the cave but a wolf lying on a rock. Hey Risha. Shit, he was back. She looked at the blonde boy. He certainly was loud. Single quote. Yes, cub. He had grown. His hair was now wilder and grew down just below his shoulders. His chest was bare and showed his well-muscled body. He wore black pants that had grown ragged at the bottom. He had lost all his baby fat and looked quite mature. He looked about 15, maybe 16. He had fangs and retractable claws, gifts of the Kyuubi for releasing him. He also had a tail and wolf ears on top of his head. The most surprising new feature was his eyes. They turned red when he got mad and they had become slits. But that wasn't the most astonishing thing about his eyes. What was is the fact that they now held warmth, no longer could hurt alone be seen in them. The humans are gathering again. The she-wolf sighed. This happened a lot but she understood. He was ever curious about his kind. And why should we care? She asked. This stumped him. He had no answer. He was just curious. He remembered living in Konoha. I was wondering, can I go back and find out about myself and my kind? She knew this day would one day come. But why did it have to come so soon? She felt that he can protect himself. Still, he gets into trouble a lot, so she had made some precautions. Sure, but before you leave I want you to sign this. She held in her mouth the summoning contract of the wolves that had been put in her keeping by her master, the summons boss. She felt he was ready for it. The summons boss had told her to give it to whoever she found that had wolf-like loyalty to his pack. She had known that it was meant for Naruto for a long time. How could she not? He was a wolf in every way besides species. He was loyal, strong, kind, and was always ready to help his pack. What is it? It will allow you to summon wolves. Including me. After she had explained its importance and what it did, he took it and looked at it with reverence. He did as he was told and signed it. She then taught him how to make the hand signs to summon. His hands moved quickly and he hit the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. A small wolf cub popped up. It squealed and jumped into his arms. He tried to keep the wolf from landing on his face, but it was not to be because with the cub's jump and his face fault he couldn't quite keep it together and ended up on the ground with a wolf on his face. I'm Sib. He said, nice to meet you. You must be our new friend. Yeah. Hey fuzzball, can you get off my face? Came a muffled reply. The wolf got off to let said blonde off the ground. I'll go tell dad that we have a new summoner, and then he disappeared in a puff of smoke. That went well, said Risha. That just pissed off the blonde who was currently trying to pick the fur out of his mouth. Overzealous. No good, furball shed in my mouth. She sighed. For a human he was quite weird. Naruto, keep safe and summon me if you have any problems. Okay mom, but it's not like I go looking for trouble, and if it finds me I can take care of myself, he said as he left the cozy little cave. She had a bad feeling about this, he was going to get in trouble. Waitish thought always gets in trouble, what else is new? In a field not far away our favorite blonde had just fallen out of a tree when a blur jumped at him. What the hell? Then he saw his attacker. It was Sib. Oh hell. Hey, my dad said I'm your familiar. You know, the summon that follows you around. Naruto was now crying anime tears. Why me? Fine, he said, but no drooling while you ride on my shoulders. Quote. The cub yipped and jumped on his shoulder. I just know I'm going to regret this. As he entered the village hidden in the leaves, he noticed it was not very different. He sat down on a stool in his favorite ramen stand. The old man at the counter looked at him and asked what Naruto wanted. I'm hurt, old man, you don't remember your favorite customer. Naru. Naruto, you're back. Well duh. Geez, I thought you would never get done with that sentence. The old cook took a long look at him and yelled, Hey Ayame, get in here, we have a special customer. A young girl with brown hair and an apron walked out. She looked at the young man and sighed. Her dad was always trying to set her up on dates, and it looked like his newest suitor had shown up. May I take your order? One pork, and might I add, you look stunning today, Ayame-chan. Quote. She was now officially ticked off. Not that this guy wasn't so hot she wanted to jump him here and now, but this was getting ridiculous. Alright buddy, you're cute and all, but I'm not going out with you, and dad, I'm not going to go out with a guy you pick for me, just let me find a guy myself. Quote. Her dad just looked at her with his mouth hanging open. He then tried to explain that this guy wasn't a special customer because he was a blind date, but she didn't believe him. They then heard chuckling. She turned on the guy, ready to let him have it, but I'm glad you find me cute, but I'm not a blind date. It's me, Naruto. She almost fainted, but then quickly gave him a hug, and he proceeded to tell them how he was forced out of the village and his adopted mother. 10 bowls of ramen, and a story later, Ayame noticed Sib asleep on the counter and grabbed him into a bone-breaking hug. Help! He cried. Naruto just laughed and avoided the cries. Then he saw the cub looking at him with his gaze full of malice. I will kill you, he said over the young woman's shoulder. This gave him the creeps. He finally rescued the wolf, said goodbye, and started walking towards the Hokage tower. He saw some girls looking at him and his familiar with hungry gazes and started getting nervous. Why are they staring at me so intently? The cub just laughed. Looks like you have fangirls, he taunted. The cub then looked at the girls with a chibi face, and soon there was a stampede coming. The young cub jumped off at the last second and landed on a nearby roof as his blonde scapegoat, Riend, got tackled by the girls. Naruto saw him laughing on the roof. I hate you. Revenge is sweet, is all he could say before the blonde escaped, grabbed him, and ran like the devil was hot on his heels. He got though the security pretty easily, seeing as Anbu was holding off Naruto's fangirls. He walked past the secretary because she was too busy drooling and walked straight into the Hokage's office. Hey Hokage Gigi. The Hokage was currently losing the fight against paperwork. It was multiplying before every time he turned away. He heard someone call his name but didn't take his eyes off his dreaded enemy, intent on keeping it from growing. Then he realized what the person had said. He jerked upright, looking at the young man. Only then did he realize his mistake. Damn, I looked away. I swear it grew another foot. Naruto face faulted. How can you tell it's already 10 feet tall? Oh yeah, you're still here, who are you? Hello blonde, blue eyes, devilishly handsome, smart, funny, and charismatic. Not ringing any bells. Naruto sighed. Dude, how could you forget me? I'm the best. You could hear crickets chirping. Sigh. Believe it. It was then that all the oxygen left his lungs because the Hokage, most powerful man in Leaf, the head honcho, the big kahuna, the big cheese tackled Naruto and hugged him. Air, needed for, continued, existence. Oops, sorry. Naruto got up and brushed himself off. He then began to explain that he had left and been adopted by a woman. When he heard this, the Hokage asked to meet the women. Alright, back up Kuchio's no jutsu. When the she-wolf appeared, Sarutobi just stared. Naruto was trying to find out what was wrong, but then he realized it. Oh, did I forget to mention she's a wolf and I have her summoning contract. Quote. That was the last thing before the Hokage face faulted so hard he knocked himself out. He eventually came around and yelled at Naruto for being an idiot and not telling him he was adopted by a wolf. After they got things settled, he gave Naruto the keys to his old apartment and Naruto left. Apparently he hoped Naruto would come back one day. Ah, now back to work. The old man sighed. Okay, round 309. And the staring contest began. He swore he heard the paper say, I will never blink, but he wasn't quite sure. He shrugged it off as stress and hard work. Naruto had just acquired a sweatshirt to hide himself in Sib. He was walking out of the store when he looked up at the nearby Hokage tower. He saw papers explode out of the windows and float out all over the village. He was going to help the old man when he heard him yell. Damn it, I blinked. He just shrugged it off. He did not want to get mixed up in it. He and Sib were back to back with the door holding it back and panting. Oh, you just had to come out of my hood. You're evil, yelled the pissed off blonde. It's not my fault it was hot, the cub retorted. The door seemed to be able to hold back the horde of females by itself. Naruto took a look around. He saw his bed and everything was exactly where he left it. Man, this place is a dump, came a voice from under the bed. The wolf cub came out dragging an orange jumpsuit out from under the bed. Did you really wear this? Naruto just nodded. Dude, is you fricking colorblind? He didn't notice the tick mark on Naruto's head as he advanced on the unsuspecting pest. Oops, a cub. The only thing person outside saw was a small object come flying out of the upstairs window. Little did they know the fuzz ball was a wolf that had just been punted out of the building. The young boy, man, wolf, hybrid thing, whatever he is, anyway, he soon had the apartment fixed up and clean just in time to hear a knock on the door. As he opened the door, he saw his wolf summon in the arms of a very hot young woman. The wolf had sticks and leaves in his fur and was covered in dirt. The young woman had 3 dogs behind her. Is this your companion? She asked. What you say something, blubbered the world's #1 idiot. Cute. He thought. Is this your wolf? Because he told me he lived herein. No good, lousy, rotten, stinking 2-bit evil, was the only reply from the wolf. Wait, you can talk to wolves? Stupid. Low down, dirty, slimy. Yeah, I'm part of a clan that can speak to dogs and they're not really that different. I ought to shove a pine cone so far up his. The young wolf then went into detail about the downright maniacal things he was going to do to his owner. Naruto's sweat dropped at the intense evil thoughts coming from the wolf and the extremely painful things it proposed to do to him. Oh, yeah, sorry, he's mine. Naruto said. The stupid furball insulted me and became one with my foot and was the first wolf to take flight courtesy of Airfoot. Quote. Said furball attacked his face and he was soon rolling on the ground trying to detach his tiny attacker. The girl giggled. She really liked this boy. I mean, what's not to like? Cute. Funny, has a companion, speaks canine. He's perfect, she thought. Oh, how wrong she was. Anyway, here you go. Are you new to the village? She asked. No, just been gone for a few years, came a muffled as he pulled Sib off his face. Well, my name's Hana. If you want me to show you around or grab a bite to eat, you're welcome to come find me at the Inazuka compound. Okay, I will try to remember that. he said, mentally remembering where said compound was. Wait, was she inviting him on a date? Nah, couldn't be. He closed the door and turned around when he heard a growl. Only to receive a face full of fur as Sib attacked him again. Not again, he thought as they rolled on the ground fighting. He got to the academy on Monday bright and early so he could avoid the evil that was fangirls. He got to his room and sat in the back. No one noticed him come in besides a young boy with a high-collared jacket that covered his face. He smelled like bugs. Naruto filed it away to think about later. He was wearing black cargo pants with lots of pockets and a skin-tight black muscle shirt. He had on a black vest over it with lots of pockets for scrolls and other things. He also had on shades, combat boots, and a necklace with a wolf's fang on it. He also still had the scratch marks from his romp with Sib. How such a small furball could scratch him enough to negate Kyuubi's healing factor he'd never know. The instructor walked in and quieted everyone down. All right, we have a new student joining us for the exams, he said. Naruto walked up and stood in front of the class, surprising everyone minus the bug boy. The girls all started drooling and the boys all looked at him and got kind of scared considering he looked at them like a feral wolf looking at P. Ray. My name's Aruka, now why don't you introduce yourself, the instructor said. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, my likes are wolves, nature, ramen, and my wolf companion Sib. He was cut off by a small wolf appearing on his shoulder, making all the girls squeal. After he regained his hearing, Naruto heard his wolf summons whisper to him. Ah, you do care, it said. Yeah, and if you push your luck I will not hesitate to drop kick you back to the apartment. Then he got an evil glint in his eyes. Or give you to the girls. You wouldn't, you're not that cruel, the wolf said, getting nervous. Don't test me, pipsqueak, was the blonde's only reply. Anyway, back to my introduction. I dislike traitors, and people who hurt my friends. Oh, and fangirls. And my dream is to become the wolf Sanin and become the alpha of my pack and protect my pack mates. He heard a boy yell his approval of that last part. He also saw the boy's dog companion. You must know Hana, he said. Yeah, my name's Kiba and she's my sister, the boy replied. You must be the, if I remember what sis said correctly, hot wild-looking wolf boy. At this, Naruto blushed and nodded his head while rubbing the back of his neck. Hey homie, pissed on any good trees lately? Sib asked the boy's dog. Yeah, good pine 327, very good year, before Jamie, it's what matters. Hi, my name's Akamaru, replied the canine. Okay, let's get on with the exams, said Aruka. First he did the 3 jutsus he had learned from the old man the day before, but he hadn't really had time to practice, so he barely passed. The written part sucked considering he didn't know any of the stuff on it. So it was safe to say he was glad when they got ready to go outside. On the accuracy, a guy who he just called the Emo King scored 9 out of 10 on the shuriken and 8 out of 10 on kunai. When Naruto came up, he just grabbed the weapons and threw them while walking without even turning to face the target. Just passing the table on his way to the line of people who were already done. He scored 9 out of 10 on the shuriken and 10 out of 10 on kunai. The instructor was shocked. This boy hadn't even taken aim. It was time for Naruto's favorite part. I mean, what strong young wolf like himself didn't like fighting for the title of alpha? He heard the teacher call his name after a few fights and saw the malicious, I own this word, duck-haired faggot, honestly who has that many fan girls but doesn't get any. Geez, he walked up and stood across from said Emo King. It was time for Naruto's favorite part. I mean, what strong young wolf like himself didn't like fighting for the title of alpha? He heard the teacher call his name after a few fights and saw Sasuke. He walked up and stood across from him. He was excited he got to fight the Rookie of the Year. This should be interesting, he thought. Give up, Dobi, you can't beat an Uchiha, guess who? Names don't mean anything, only loyalty, strength, and protecting your pack, retorted the blonde as he slid onto all fours as he extended his claws. Everything was quiet. Naruto reveled in the feeling of the wind blowing over him, the sound of the nearby creek, and the soft grass under his hands. He could smell the scents that wafted in the wind. Food, humans, way too much sakura perfume. If you don't get on the first try, you need to slap your self, and a soft and inviting smell. One that he had smelled many times. One that had meant safety and love for many years. Begin, said the instructor. Mom. He took off running on all fours straight for the young boy. He got to him and tried to sweep his legs out from under him. Sasuke was surprised at the boy's speed and just barely jumped over the leg sweep. He tried to hit the blonde with a haymaker only to get caught and thrown to the ground. He got up and charged straight for his opponent only to catch a right hook to the chin. He flew off the ground only to have his foot caught by the wolf boy and thrown into the wall, knocking him unconscious. Everyone stared. The Uchiha had been beat by the new student. The boys all smirked and congratulated him. The girls went to check on their crush except for one with a big hoodie on. He got his headband and went out with some of the boys to get some barbecue. He learned their names. The big one that was eating all the barbecue was called Choji. The amazing lazy pineapple was named Shikamaru. Finally, dog boy, as we already know, was named Kiba. They talked about different things and ate until they got kicked out. Flashback no jutsu. The boys had been talking and having a good time until they saw that there was only one piece of meat. Naruto and Choji both reached for it at the same time. The other boys tried to warn him, but Naruto wouldn't let go. They were both staring at each other so intently that they didn't see Sib. He ran out and grabbed the meat from both of them. They both saw this and decided that they would join forces to get revenge. The ensuing brawl between the self-proclaimed chubby, the wolf cub, and the wolf boy was epic and destroyed a good part of the restaurant. Flashback no jutsu kai. He had paid for the damage and gone home to take a shower. He was gonna kill that furball when he got home. He had just been put on a team with Kiba and Shikamaru and they were heading to the ramen stand for lunch with Choji and their new friend Hana before meeting their sensei. Choji was complaining about his team. Man, why did I get stuck on a team with Mr. Makimo and the Silent Wonder? Said Choji. Don't complain, you didn't get stuck on the two dog boys. Replied Shikamaru as he sat down and ordered. Hey, I resent that just cause my clan uses dogs means I stink and I'm dirty and wild. Yelled Kiba. Yeah, Hana smelled quite nice. So it must just be him. Said Naruto as they started eating. Everyone looked at him. Silence. Complete silence. Finally Choji fell off his chair choking on his noodles. Kiba started laughing. Shikamaru just said troublesome, and Hana eeped. So you got a crush on my sister, do you? Said Kiba. No, nope, absolutely not. Said Naruto nervously. The rest of the meal was spent ragging on Naruto. After they had finished, they went back to school to wait for their sensei. When they got there, the teacher said that Team 10's sensei was waiting for them on a nearby roof. They got there and introduced themselves. Hi, I'm Asuma and I like smoking and shogi. I dislike some things and my dream is to have a family and die. Said their sensei. After everyone else had introduced themselves, their sensei told them to meet for their test at Training Ground 13 and then Hila Fort. The rest of them were about to go home when Kiba stopped them. Hey guys, my mom invited you two over so she could meet my teammates, he said. I don't know, I was gonna go home and hang out with Sib and this dinner would cut into my lying around time. Said Naruto. Ah, come on, Sib can come and besides Hana will be there. Really? I mean, I don't know, I got so much to do in. Okay, you convinced me, let's go. Naruto replied. It's too troublesome. Said Shikamaru. He was promptly grabbed and dragged by the other two boys. Yeah, definitely too troublesome. When they got there, Naruto asked where the bathroom was so he could wash up. Kiba showed him and he walked in. The first thing he noticed was it was steamy and it smelled like lilacs. Wait, what? He noticed the feminine shadow on the shower curtain and started to back towards the door. He tried to open it but found that Kiba had locked it from the outside. Wait, he knew. He is so dead when I get out of here. He looked for somewhere to hide but couldn't find anywhere. Suddenly something tugged on his shirt. It was a hand. Whoever it was looking for her towel. He got tugged into the shower. He was given a peek at what most men would kill for. Hana Inuzuka in the shower. She was a goddess. He was quickly propelled through the locked door and down the hallway by a huge nosebleed. How he stayed conscious no one knows, but he found Kiba rolling on the ground. He quickly pounded him into the floor but was caught off guard when Hana walked out in her towel and punched him through the wall. He found himself in the kitchen with a leg through the hole shaped like his body. Shikimaru was sitting in a chair laughing at him. He saw a woman that looked like a mix of Kiba and Hana. Must be their mom. And that was the last thought that went through his mind before he met unconsciousness courtesy of Hana with a frying pan. It had been awkward after he had woken up tied to a chair. He had told Hana and her mom the truth, and then the next half hour had been spent chasing and torturing Kiba. Dinner had been weird. Hana wouldn't look at him and kept blushing every time she did, which only led for him to blush and Kiba to snicker. Hana would glare at him and he would shut up. It was pretty comical if you weren't one of the three, especially Sum, who had to admit her daughter hadn't been Lee Ing when she said the wolf boy was hot. He had this feral look about him. She wouldn't mind letting him ravage her. From the look of it, Hana didn't either. Wonder if he's as wild in bed as he looks. Naruto got a shiver up his spine but ignored it. Shikimaru had heard the story, and after witnessing the beating of Kiba, he laughed every time he saw Naruto blush or when he looked at Kiba. Who wouldn't? The bumps on his head were pretty comical. After dinner they said bye and left. On the way home, Naruto hit Shiki because he wouldn't stop laughing. A while later they split up and went to their respective houses. The next day they had met at the specified training ground to take the test. Their sensei explained that Choji's team's test was to protect a pervert at the hot springs that wrote their sensei's favorite book. Naruto and his team's test was to team up with Hinata's team to attack them without alerting the women inside till the other team was neutralized and they had been extracted. They had met Team 12, which was made up of the three best girls in their class. Sakura, the smartest girl in class and the co-captain, with Ino, of the Sasuke fan club, Ino the best girl when it came to using jutsu in class, and Hinata, who though losing a battle with her confidence was the besta taijutsu in class. Alright Shikimaru and Sakura, you two need to work on a strategy. Kiba and Hinata need to find our targets. I will be the one to take on the emo, said Naruto. Ino, I need you to go into the hot springs and keep the girls from coming out until we had fallen back to the safety of the trees. The people nodded and set about their assigned tasks. The Jonin were impressed at the speed and genius incorporated in the teen's orders. He had taken in all his teammates' strengths into account and sent them on tasks that would be perfect for them. 10 minutes later the targets had been sighted and they were hiding in the trees waiting for the signal to begin. A howl was heard on the horizon and they all sprinted forwards. Before the other team knew what was happening, Shikimaru captured Choji in his shadow and Ino captured Shino with her clan's family jutsu. The two Jonin held off Team 7's team leader. Naruto slammed Sasuke into a tree in a shoulder tackle. He then tried to hit Sasuke but missed, his hand creating a crater in the tree. He slid sideways coughing up blood. Naruto took the opportunity to kick his opponent in the side, sending him rolling across the ground. He looked at the rest of his team. Choji had surrendered knowing he couldn't break out, and Sakura had put a kunai to Shino's neck before Ino let go of the jutsu and put her own blade to keep the boy still. The Jonins were still battling it out. His lapse in concentration had cost him though. He received a punch in the stomach from his maddened opponent. He quickly recovered but his opponent was doing hand signs for a fire jutsu. Naruto kicked him in the chest, knocking the breath he had taken for the jutsu out of him. He followed up with a kick in the back of the head that sent the emo sprawling on the ground gasping for air. Kiba quickly tied the three up. Naruto took stock of the situation. They had 3 prisoners they had to get out of there before they could give the signal to Ino to yell pervert. Also their senseis were still fighting. Fall back to the tree line, I'll take on the pervert, he said. They did so without question and he saw the pervert ahead. He wore a old red vest and a headband with the words for oil on it. He turned just in time to duck under Naruto's roundhouse kick. Summoning jutsu, yelled the old man. A huge toad appeared under him and tried to hit Naruto with his tongue. Naruto dodged and summoned a young gray wolf. Hey Jack, a lil help here, said Naruto. Jack just wolfed and ran at the pervert. The man was surprised that this young man could summon wolves. That summoning had been lost years ago. In his disbelief, he got knocked off the frog's back and fell in the hot springs. Naruto heard the word pervert and a lot of fighting. He called the retreat and ran off with the Jonins to the rest of the teams. They released the captured Genins and went to their respective training grounds. You all passed, said Asuma. Naruto, you will make a great leader. Shikamaru, you are well on your way to becoming a great strategist, and Kiba, your tracking and bond with your companion are top rate. Quote, this will be the greatest team of this generation, he thought. All right, yelled two excited young men. The third was asleep on the ground. After taking Shiki home and saying goodbye to Kiba, Naruto headed home. Sub showed up sometime on the trip and they were talking about what they were going to have for dinner and other stupid stuff. What else do you talk about when you are together all the time? On the way, Naruto smelled something familiar but just put it off as something near his apartment. Suddenly a shadow moved out in front of them. The person took a menacing step forward. Suddenly Naruto could make out who it was. You. That's it, sorry about messing with the tests, but I needed a way to fit Pervy Sage in there early so he can meet Naruto, notice his dreams and start helping him Aki. Eve his goal. Besides, if he asked Kakashi to help him and Team 7 was all male, Kakashi would do it in a heartbeat, and you know it. Someone stepped out in front of them. Naruto recognized him at once. Oh, it's just the perv from this morning. I was actually scared for a second. He said, hey, shut up. I'm not a perv. I am Jiraiya the super perv, the old man replied, doing some weird shuffle thing. Which I shall now call the pervy shuffle. Anyway, I'm going home. Naruto replied, trying to edge away. I want to train you. The perv said. Naruto was shocked. No one even liked him. Why would someone want to train him? He was the town's whipping boy. Why? You do know I was the Fox Demon's container until I let him free. He said. Yes. Sarutobi told me about how you found a loophole. What was the loophole, by the way? I made a deal with the devil. I summoned the Shinigami with the fox's help and we signed a contract in blood. The Shinigami would take the fox out of my seal and the fox would be contained in hell forever. Ah, I knew Arashi would leave a back door. Anyway, I want to train you because you're the son of my student, Karen Inuzuka. To say that Naruto was surprised was an understatement. He was the son of an Inuzuka. Who was my father, and you can't want to personally train me just cause of that. He said. Your father was a blacksmith, one of the best. He made the Yodime's special kunai. Also, to answer your second question. No, if you were just her son I would have you trained by someone I trust, but you have a summoning contract. I want to train you to be able to kill Orochimaru and become the third Sannin. The wolf Sannin. The man replied. The meaning of what Jiraiya had said was stifling. He had the toad Sannin asking to train him to be the third Sannin. I don't know. Can I do it? Naruto asked. His old insecurities were bubbling up, making him afraid. Years of abuse made him uneasy, his confidence had been shot for years. He was always wearing a mask, but down inside he was unsure, afraid, a cowering child. His life with the wolves had taught him not to be afraid, but he was once again feeling the cold pit in his stomach. Yes, you can. You can do it if you try hard enough. Came the soft response. I will. I have to become strong. I have to be able to protect the old man, Ayame, Sib, and Mom. I have a pack now and I have to protect them. He said resolutely. The perv was amazed that someone that had been through so much could survive and find happiness. Karen, your child is a lot like you. You would be proud. Alright, meet me at training ground 72 after your mission and training tomorrow. The perv then disappeared in a puff of smoke and leaves. The next day Naruto's team was sent on a capture mission. This is lazy troublesome. This is doggy style. I'm in position. I hate you, Naruto. This is Smokestack. I have the target is sight. This is Wolf Boy. Move in. They circled the cat while Sib jumped on its back and wrestled it to the ground. Asuma picked it up and started walking off. Let's go. I think we just beat the old record, he said through a mouthful of death stick. Kiba looked murderously at Naruto. Next time I pick the code names. He growled. What, you don't like mine? He started counting them off on his fingers. Wet dog, Fido, doggy style, fuzzy, butt licker. None of those. 10 minutes later they could be found sporting bruises and cuts from fighting. Shikamaru had accidentally gotten dragged in and his pineapple hair looked like it had been peeled and cut in quarters. They turned in the cat and went to their training ground. Shikamaru was given weights and made to run, do push-ups, and pull-ups. Naruto was given a lesson in kunai and shuriken from Asuma. Last but not least, Kiba was made to climb up and down trees with a full backpack on. After training they went to lunch at a dango stand. They met the female team there. Kurenai was there and so were Ino and Sakura, but Hinata was missing. Where's Hinata? Kiba asked. She is with her other sensei learning confidence while I beat the fangirl out of these two. Kurenai answered. Sure enough, Hinata came in scrapped up and looked like she had been chewed on by a snake. Oh, the irony is they don't know how true that is. She was with a provocatively dressed purple-haired Jonin. She introduced herself as Anko, then began to promptly flirt with Naruto. An hour and a very weird lunch later, Naruto said goodbye to his friends and went to training ground 72. The perv wasn't there and Naruto sat down on the ground against a tree. An hour later he was still waiting quietly. All of the sudden he jumped away as the tea blew backwards. The sage stood there on the trunk holding what looked like a swirling ball of air. Good, you've learned patience and awareness. Now I can teach you this move if you want. He said, holding the ball aloft. Nope, I think I will make my own jutsu, but thanks. Naruto replied. Alright then, I think I will have to test you. Jiraiya said. Bring it on, perv. Naruto said as he slid onto all fours, extending his claws. I'm a super perv. The sage shot back, jumping at his student with another Rasengan in hand. An hour later the young wolf boy lay in a destroyed training ground surrounded by downed trees. He looked like he had been put through a wood chipper. The toad sage stood not far away, leaning over and breathing hard. His shirt was torn and he had 4 claw marks across his chest. Wow, that was good for a first try. And without summons too. You got me good once and you made me sweat. He said. Naruto just grunted from the ground. The perv continued talking. I told Sume, the Inuzuka clan head, about your parentage. She wants you to come over and talk some. I suggest you go change. You have a family now. He disappeared and Naruto stood up and limped to his apartment to get ready. Naruto sat in the Inuzuka council chamber. Unlike the other more formal clans, their council just sat wherever they wanted around the council chamber. I use that term lightly as it looked like a giant living room filled with dogs, people, couches. They had a TV. Apparently the clan head was in charge, the council was just a formality. He looked at Sume. So great meeting, we just watched Animal Planet as animals killed things. He said. Yay. It was great. I love that snake guy. I can't wait till the show where he gets eaten. She said. Naruto just looked at her weird. He had recently found out that he was Sume's distant cousin. His mom had been her sister's cousin's brother's uncle's former wife's mother's sister. She had loved the look on his face. She hadn't stopped making fun of him about the fact that he was far enough to date Hana and her. He didn't like it even if he was relieved and a little weirded out at the fact that she had included herself in that sentence. He spent the rest of the night eating dinner with the family and hanging around. The girls couldn't keep their paws, well, sort of, off of Sib. By the time the evening was over and it was time for him to go home, he had spent an hour trying to get Sib back. After much chasing and pulling, a disheveled Sib sat cowering on his head. The only highlight of the night had been Hana's 3 female companions. As he was about to leave, Sume stopped him. Where are you going, young man? You're staying here with your family, she said. But, Quote. No buts except yours in this house now. I spent time making a room for you and you're going to sleep in it, she said. Hana gave him the puppy dog eyes as did Soom. He looked from face to face. Can't resist. Creepy. Can't resist. Creepy. Can't resist. Creepy but still working, he thought. Fine, he said dejectedly. They jumped up and down and squealed like girls. They then proceeded to drag him to a room down the hall. He said good night and went to bed. It had been a long day and he had training tomorrow. He thought back on the day with happiness. He had a team that he was close to. He had a great sensei that could help him get strong and cared about him, and now he had a family. He fell asleep smiling. I went back and changed the first chapter. Naruto has no dream about becoming the wolf Sannin. He just wants to be the strongest and protect his pack. Naruto was walking next to the perv on a trip to find his father's grave. He was still thinking about what Jiraiya had told him. Your father did not leave you because he didn't love you. Jiraiya said to the wolf boy. Then why didn't he stay with me? He shot back. The shock of your mother's death was almost too much. Then there was you. You held what had killed her. He couldn't kill you. He loved you and you were the legacy of your mother and him. However, at the same time he hated your prisoner. He would have to kill you to get to it and that he could not do. He finally decided to leave you to me and the Hokage so he could keep himself from killing you. The old man said. Then what happened to him? No money to send me. No letters. Nothing. Naruto asked. I got a letter about a month ago. It was from him. He was dying but he had no money to give you. Instead he made you a sword of the best materials from across the land. He traveled around gathering them and making you the best sword ever. Using techniques from the best metal smiths he crafted a work of art. He put it in a shrine and left it booby-trapped and sealed with a blood seal for you to come and claim it. The sage said. We are going to go pick it up as soon as possible. He continued. That was what had started this Go-Doffel trip. Between the hot springs, bars, and brothels it was becoming a very long trip. He bumped into the older man who had stopped short. Before them lay a cliff face. 200 yards up lay a building. Naruto began to run up to the wall when the sage stopped him. He pointed to a seal 50 feet off the ground. That wall will suck your chakra out if you try to run up. Your father was a seal's master. He said. Then how do we get up? Naruto asked. The perv dug around behind a nearby boulder and something clicked. Immediately a staircase appeared. The sage stepped back and sat on the boulder. That's as far as I go. This is your test to see if you're capable of using the sword. He said. Naruto just shrugged and let Sib jump up on his shoulder. He began to walk up and got about 20 yards when he heard a thump. He turned around only to notice that the first stair had slammed shut and the rest were starting to close. Shit, was all Naruto could say before he began to haul up the stairs. Each thump encouraged him to run faster. He soon got to the top and collapsed. He looked down at the drop. He kept wondering what father set traps to keep their sons out of their inheritance. He walked up to the huge doors. They were 6 times his height and could fit 20 men and a midget standing shoulder to shoulder and shoulder to hip in T. He midget's case. He saw a seal and pumped chakra into it. A voice resonated out of the building. If you wish to enter prodigal son then wipe the blood of the maker on this seal. The voice said. Naruto pulled out a knife and cut his hand. He wiped it across the seal and it began to swirl. It lit up and when the breaks in the seal all matched up the door opened and Naruto stepped through, the doors closing behind him. In the center of the room lay a pedestal with a sword. The sword was chained to the pedestal and it pulsed as Naruto got closer. He grabbed it without a thought. It let out a scream like the screech of metal across metal. The chains turned red and exploded. Naruto was thrown through the doors and off the cliff still holding the sword. He heard a whisper. Goodbye my son, may you live a very happy life. He screamed and tried to turn himself. He saw the ground coming fast but blacked out just before he hit the ground. He woke up in the back of his mind except this time the sewer was gone and before him lay the cave he had grown up in. He heard someone talking. It came from the walls all around. Naruto was confused. He had found the sword, been thrown off the cliff, and he was hearing things. I am Burning Fang. Know my name, the voice said. The walls began to glow and from them came beams of light that collected in the center of the cave. They light formed into the sword from the shrine. It was safe to say Naruto was very confused. The sword morphed into a wolf and walked up to him. What the hell? Naruto asked. Your father used a lost art to put the part of his soul that loved you and didn't want to kill you into this sword. I am the representation of that part of his soul. Now awaken before we become a big puddle of goo. The wolf yelled. Naruto woke up and found himself plummeting to his doom. He had to summon a wolf. He started doing hand signs. Summoning jutsu. He cried. A poof of smoke later he expected a good-sized wolf. What he got was Fenrir. He crashed headfirst into the Summon King's head. Who has summoned the head of the loyal wolf clan, he said. Inuzuka Naruto, the future wolf Sannin. He said. Oh really? Kinda like the pervert Gambunta tells me stories about when we play poker on Thursdays. Fenrir said. Yes, except I'm not a perv like him. If you listened really closely you could hear said perv. I'm a super perv. Did you hear that? The wolf summon asked. Ignore it. I would like your blessings to summon the wolves if you please. Naruto replied. I will test you later but for now I have to go. Gambunta was drunk off his and about to get in a brawl with the head of the boar summons. The wolf said. Naruto just sweat dropped and got off so the summon could leave. I still can't believe my father did all that. That was suicide. Naruto had gotten back to Konoha and had just told his friends the tale of his journey. He was about to finish another bowl of ramen when Kiba tapped his shoulder. He turned around to see an Anbu standing behind him. Naruto, the Hokage would like to see you, the masked man said. Okay, see you guys. Bye Iruka-sensei, he said, grabbing his ramen. He threw some money on the counter and disappeared in a puff of smoke. He left 4 confused people behind. How did he know it was me? The Raven Anbu asked. It's really you? Kiba and Choji asked. When did he learn Shushin? Shika asked. The Hokage sat before the council. News of Naruto's return and parentage had brought a lot of commotion to the room. Some wanted him dead, others wanted him left alone. More still wanted him to become a weapon for their use. One wanted him to be disowned by his new family. The Hokage smirked thinking about the man leaving the room with a dog attached to his pants and his heart boxers showing courtesy of Sume. Hey guys, what's up? Everyone turned to see Naruto leaning back behind the Hokage's desk slurping down ramen. Get out of the Hokage's desk, you little twerp, you don't deserve to sit back there. Also throw that trash out, it's impolite to eat in a meeting. One civilian member said. The man caught a bowl to the chin and fell down unconscious. Everyone looked at Naruto and he held up 4 fingers. 1. You don't command me, you're not a ninja. 2. I don't care what you say, I can sit where I damn well please. 3. I was done anyway. And 4. Ramen is not trash. Oh, and your mother's a whore. Naruto then leaned back farther and waited till one of the shocked council was ready. Naruto, we would like to ask if you are loyal to Konoha. The Hokage asked. No. His simple answer stunned the crowd. I am loyal to my friends, my team, and you, old man. But we never did anything to you. The Hyuga head said. I have seen you torture your branch members when they did not attack me, so do not play innocent. Quote. What do you plan to do? Sortobi asked. He was secretly pleased. This village did not deserve the wolf boy's loyalty. I will become the wolf Sannin by killing and replacing Orochimaru. He said, matter of fact, like killing one of the most dangerous S-ranked missing nin from Konoha was an every day thing for him. You could never defeat him. You are just a weak demon. The Uchiha would be much more capable of killing him. Another stupid civilian said. Naruto could beat the Uchiha blindfolded. They heard a voice from the window only to find the toad Sannin leaning against the wall. I have trained him partially and will continue to train him, the perv said. Fuckhead civilian number 3 was about to talk when he was cut off by Naruto. You have 1 month to train the Uchiha. I will not train any further so he can at least come close to catching me. At the end of that time we will have a match in the stadium. If I win you civilians stop sticking your noses in ninja business on pain of death. If he wins Toad Boy over there. He pointed to the perv. We'll train him instead of me and you can use me as your slave weapon whatever. It's on. Fuckhead number 3 said. You sure about this? The perv asked as they turned to leave. Yes. Naruto said. I wager my daughter to the winner. Sume said making Naruto swivel around. She was smiling madly. Oh yeah, the Uchiha will become a Sannin. We get the demon and Sasuke gets the Inuzuka bitch to continue his line and intertwine the clans. None of the civilians saw Naruto slide a kunai out of his sleeve. Just you wait Sume. We will turn your daughter into a breeder. Fuckhead number 3 continued. Sume just smiled. She had seen the kunai and knew what was coming. So how are we going to get the whore? He never saw the kunai that split his head open coming. It continued on and stuck in the wall. Everyone turned to look at Naruto. His eyes had turned to slits and turned a feral yellow. His claws extended, his hair grew shaggier, and his ears and tails popped up. He growled and turned to leave. Sume just laughed and looked at the quivering body on the floor. Somehow I don't think the Uchiha will have any children after this is over. She said with a feral look that scared everyone in the room. Naruto sat in the middle of the stadium. He had a wardrobe change over the last month. He wore a black vest with a hood kind of like Kiba's sweatshirt but black with pockets and no sleeves. He left it unzipped and wore nothing underneath. He still wore his fingerless gloves with the wolf engraved plates on the back, black cargo pants and black combat boots. His hair had grown shoulder length and was shaggy making him look a little wild. He had totally avoided walking the streets to keep from being jumped by fangirls. He fixed his gloves and thought back to his meeting with Sume. Naruto began to walk out of the back rooms into the stadium when he noticed someone leaning against the wall by the door. If you lose you get disowned, you become a weapon with no free will, and more importantly you lose Hana. Sume said. Why? Why put her in this? She needn't be in this. He replied. To test you. Because if you aren't strong enough to fight for her you don't deserve her. If you don't have the heart, you will lose her. But what if I'm not strong enough? What if he wins? He lowered his head. Sume quickly covered the distance between them and slapped him. You are an Inuzuka. You don't not give up and you fight for what is dear to you. He is an Uchiha that fights for glory and his clan. You fight for honor. He fights for pride in his name. She put her hand on his face and lifted it up. What do you do, young Inuzuka, if he knocks you down? Get back up. And if he throws you off a wall, I step back through it. If he cuts your arm off, or stabs you in the gut, or rips out your heart, or burns your body, I fight and fight until I cannot fight any longer. I don't give up. I kill. I run. I go on until I win. Only then can I die. If he threatens your loved ones, I tear his head off. Naruto's eyes began to change and his teeth became longer. And what do you do this for? Not pride. Not glory. Not money. Not fame. Then what do you fight for? Naruto yelled his answer. I fight for my loved ones. Sume just nodded and began to walk away. You have to win for Hana's sake. If you lose and live, L will kill you. So if you must lose, you better take his sorry with you. He sat there waiting for his opponent. He had no idea who was training him, but they were unusually late. Leaves stirred in the middle of the stadium and Sasuke and Kakashi appeared. Good, I was waiting for a fight. Naruto said. I will win. Sasuke said. I'm an Uchiha. Kakashi left the Aryan and the proctor explained the rules. You both know the bets. You will fight until I deem someone unfit to continue, someone is knocked out, or someone dies. Begin. He jumped away. Naruto crouched on all fours and charged Sasuke. Sasuke started some hand seals. Fire flower jutsu. Naruto dodged the fire and kicked Sasuke up into the air with the help of 3 clones. U-Z-A-M-A-K-I. Naruto Barrage. Everyone looked at the crater only to find Sasuke had substituted with a boulder. Pretty good, he taunted, but I can do better. He took off at high speeds and began to kick the wolf boy around like a soccer ball. With one final kick he put Naruto into the wall of the stadium. All the civilians began to cheer because the demon had been defeated. Hana stood up and looked a little disconcerted. When the dust settled they saw Naruto laying in the dirt. Sasuke walked up to him and kicked him in the side. Looks like I get your little mud bitch, he said smirking. Hana, relax. It's not over. He won't lose without dying, and even then he will take that asshole with him. Sum said. Naruto started to change into his wolf form. She is not a trophy to win, he said, catching Sasuke's second kick. He flipped up onto the wall and opened his mouth. Bark. A wall of fire chakra shot out of his mouth and raced towards Sasuke. Sasuke barely escaped. The toad sage at next to Sum, old pervs trying to score. He stood up and walked to the railing. Naruto, your lady's at stake here. Hana tried to object but was cut off. I think it's time you showed him your true speed. Naruto smiled wolfishly, scaring a few of the onlookers. He put his hand on his vest and slid it off. He did the same with his boots. He held them up and dropped them. Dust shot 100 feet in the air, scaring everyone present. The fact that a genin was carrying that much weight scared them. Naruto swore he heard someone screaming about the flames of youth. He looked at the Uchiha and again took off. This time they were evenly matched. No one saw much, just snatches of them here and there. A few times they were seen with kunai locked. Finally they saw the emo stop. Fireball jutsu. He fired it right at the Inuzuka. Naruto barely had time to get between them and the flaming ball. He jumped into the air and took on the jutsu head on. His burned body fell to the ground. The Inuzuka clan gasped. That was a low blow. Sasuke walked towards the struggling figure. Naruto had barely gotten to his knees when Sasuke grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up and slammed him up against the wall. Naruto coughed up blood. Hana looked worried. The Inuzuka began to yell about how cheap that was. Sarutobi looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya just looked back and stood up, walking over to the railing. You are worthless. You don't deserve to live. Just give up and die, Sasuke said. Hana looked at her mother. Sum just shook her head. It's not over, she said. I won't give up and I won't die until I take you with me, Naruto said, spitting blood on Sasuke's face. Sasuke just slammed him against the wall again. Naruto looked at him and just coughed up more, started to laugh. I am an Inuzuka. I don't give up and I fight for what is dear to me. You are an Uchiha that fights for glory and your clan. I fight for honor. You fight for pride and your name. I was once asked, Naruto said. Hana looked at him like he was crazy. Why did he not just give up? Sum stood up by Jiraiya. She began to recite with him. What do you do, young Inuzuka, if he knocks you down? He said. Get back up, she said to Hana, and if he throws you off a wall, I step back through it. He sputtered. If he cuts your arm off, or stabs you in the gut, or rips out your heart, or burns your body, she whispered. I fight and fight until I cannot fight any longer. I don't give up. I kill. I run. I go on until I win. Only then can I die. He yelled at Sasuke's. If he threatens your loved ones. She yelled over the noise of the crowd. Naruto, hearing her, smiled and roared over all of the background noise. I tear his head off. And what do you do this for? She continued. Not pride. Not glory. Not money. Not fame. Then what do you fight for? She asked, as if asking the whole stadium. She said the last part with him. I fight for my loved ones, he roared, headbutting Sasuke's face. Sum turned to her daughter. He fights for you. He fights because you are dear to him and are worth fighting for. He will win if it costs him his life. He won't give up, you're too precious to him, she said, turning back to the field. He won't give up for anything. Naruto tried to stand but was shoved back up against the wall by a bleeding Sasuke. You will die now. Where is your honor now? Stand up after this, Sasuke said right before shoving a Chidori through Naruto's chest. Naruto sat impaled on his opponent's arm. It had just missed his heart, but he would most likely die anyway. Sasuke pulled his arm out and drooped Naruto to the ground. He began to walk away. Naruto looked up at Hana. She sat in the stands crying and looking at the floor. She stood up and screamed at him. Why did you not just give up? She asked. Quote, he just smiled and pulled himself upright. His wound began to heal, but it would not be enough. He walked up behind Sasuke, who was waving to the cheering crowd. Naruto grabbed the emo and threw him into the wall. Sasuke stumbled out. Why do you still fight? You will die and the Inuzuka breeder will be mine. Just give up and die with dignity, he said. Naruto smiled sadly and shook his head. You don't get it. Yes, I will die. Yes, there is no hope for me. But I will take you with me, he said. His eyes began to glow with an unworldly light. Jiraiya saw this and turned away. What is happening? Hana asked. I have seen it many times before. He is using his life force to continue. It will kill him, but he will take Sasuke with him, he said. Drag him to hell with you. You were a good student, may you rest well, he said to Naruto before starting to walk away. Sarutobita turned. He saw Naruto's surrogate mother standing on the wall of the stadium. She jerked her head towards the field. He turned in time to see Naruto's eyes turn back to their wolf form. Naruto's white aura turned yellow and wolves began to howl throughout the surrounding woods. Sib began to change. He grew until he was the same size as Hana's triplets. He jumped down and stood by Naruto, glowing the same color. Risha stood between the Toad Sannin and the Hokage. We are a pack. We live as a pack. We fight as a pack. We die as a pack. The wolves are combining our power so that he can live, she said. Naruto blurred out of sight and slammed Sasuke up into the air. He jumped up and slung Sasuke into the ground, creating a giant crater. He again blurred off and appeared baying the struggling Uchiha. Naruto backhanded Sasuke across the field before blurring and appearing above him. He axe-kicked the Emo King straight into the ground. Naruto began to walk off, as the proctor called it a ko, only to get 30 feet before passing out. He awoke only to be shocked by a hug from Hana. He lay in his bed and looked at everyone around him. You gave us quite a scare. Sum smiled. Don't ever do that again, Risha said. He smiled and lay back down only to shoot back up. Wait, what are you doing here? He asked his wolf mother. I moved in along with the rest of the wolves in the wolf clan, she said. He looked out the window only to find wolves and dogs playing in the rather large Inuzuka compound. Life just got a little weirder, he said. He looked at Hana. So, she started to move towards him. Don't kill me, please. She grabbed his shirt and pulled him into a kiss. Why would I hurt my stubborn boyfriend? She said, smiling sweetly. Jiraiya gulped and slid away, holding his manhood. He had seen that smile before. BB bo boy father bo ffffffff boyfriend, he asked just before passing out. Ah, just like my husband when we first started going out, Sum and Risha both said, starting to reminisce. Everyone in the room sweat dropped. What is wrong with this family? They yelled. Naruto was walking behind Jiraiya. It had been 2 hours, but the old perv hadn't told the wolf boy where they were going. Naruto was paying so little attention he almost ran into the old man. Alright Naruto, I have a confession to make. We aren't just going to train in some field. I am taking you on a journey for 5 years. I plan to teach you how to work Togathor with your summons, use your sword, and many other useful things such as create your own jutsu. The old man said. PFFFT. I knew this was coming. Okay, let's go. The boy said. What? I assumed you would be mad that I tricked you. Nah, by the way, there is someone here, Naruto said, sniffing. Oh good, Kenshin is here. The old man said. You might want to take out your sword. A flash of red and a young man with an X-shaped scar had his blade locked with Naruto's. The man had long red hair. Hello Naruto, he said. I am the Batosai. Time skip a year. Naruto was leaned against a tree and thought about the news he had received recently through the Toad Sanin's informant. T.S. Sound had attacked the Leaf Village and done some damage but nothing major. Jiraiya had learned of the attack early through the cage and informed the village. Sand had been offered a chance to help, but the cage was in debt to Naruto for helping get the one-tailed beast free in the same man. As Naruto had gotten rid of the fox. While few people were hurt, there was substantial damage to the buildings. The cage had been killed and Orochimaru used the man's likeness to get close enough to kill the third. While Naruto was sad, he had always known the old man would die. Naruto had missed the memorial, but he had given his own memorial. With that over with, he went back to what he knew the old man would have wanted him to be doing instead of mourning, training. Naruto dove out of the way as a foot implanted itself into the ground where the wolf boy had been standing. "Ah, good Naruto. You're getting better," the man said. He wore a green domed hat and had a huge mustache. "Will you stop sneaking up on me, you bloody pedophile? If I didn't see you always sneaking around at the hot springs with Jiraiya, I would swear you were bent," Naruto said, catching a knee to the chin. He flew back and connected with a boulder. Time skipped 2 years. Naruto stood on a stone pillar. He had done much since the attack on Konoha. Other than finding the slug Sanin and convincing her to go to be the 5th Hokage, he had visited all the major countries and met much of the Toad Sanin spy network, while simultaneously setting up his own. He had also seen many things and learned much from his senseis. He knew how to use his sword and had made his own fighting style, which was a version of Kempo with a few outside moves, all of which incorporated his four-legged fighting style. He was starting to become powerful, but he would still need more to beat the Snake Sanin. The Uchiha was soon to be the Snake Man's new body, and while Naruto could whip the little shit, he did not want an Orochimaru with Sharingan. Suddenly the perverted sage appeared on a pillar not far from Naruto. "Okay Naruto, you have learned a lot, but now you will meet your most powerful sensei yet," the man said. "Who is it this time?" Naruto said, looking straight at the old man. "It is me. The great and powerful Super Perv shall teach you what you need to know to finish your training," he shouted, doing the pervy shuffle. "Bring it on, old man," Naruto said, dropping on all fours. Time skipped 1 year and 6 months. Hana Pav. Hana was standing in what was supposed to be one of Orochimaru's bases. The triplets started going crazy and Hana looked towards the direction they were barking. On a ledge not too far away stood her target, Sasuke Uchiha. "Sasuke!" cried Sakura and Ino. "Why anyone would want them on their team I will never know." She looked at her team. She and Kurenai were deployed with Anko while Ino, Sakura, and Hinata played backup. On paper not a bad team. They had Anko the Snake Ninja, her mini-me, Kurenai the Genjutsu Mistress, Sakura the apprentice to Tsunade, Ino of the Yamanaka clan, and herself the next clan head of the Inuzuka. In reality, she had 2 fangirls after the object of their affection, her sadistic friend bent on tearing the target apart for information on her former master, herself, a young girl that was still being brought out of her shell, and Kurenai the Genjutsu Mistress. "Sasuke, you can still come back with us," Sakura pleaded. "I don't think so," he said before turning to leave. "Please Sasuke, don't leave," Ino said, attaching herself to his left arm. He grabbed her wrist and tossed her like a rag doll across the room. She bounced twice before skidding to a stop 20 yards away. Sasuke charged up a Chidori and prepared to rush the girl. "Shit!" Hana jumped between the two. She knew she was going to die. She could feel the electricity in the air as Sasuke disappeared. Then she saw him. Strange. He can move so fast, why can I see him? Suddenly the lightning chakra stopped a few inches from her heart. Man, this is troublesome. Hana saw a hand attached to Sasuke's wrist. The hand led up to a man. The man was wearing a white hooded figure with a gourd on his back. Think Assassin's Creed. I finally get home for the first time in forever and I am all set for some rest when Grandma Tsunade sends me to catch some snot-nosed stuck-up. Never mind, it's not worth it, the man said. Who, what, when, where? Why are you disrespecting the Hokage like that? Sakura yelled. Sasuke, finally over the shock at having been stopped, tried to strengthen the electricity in his hand. The figure noticed this and tightened his grip. Sasuke winced and the Chidori disappeared. I'm a ninja. I'm a ninja. I'm a ninja, and I am a ninja. The answer to the last only discernible one is cause she doesn't care. He said. Let go of my arm. Sasuke said, pulling his sword and holding the point against the man's throat. The man simply increased the pressure and broke Sasuke's wrist. Sasuke fell and held his fractured limb in his hand and jabbed his sword forward. What he didn't expect was for the man to go up in smoke. You really are useless. The man said, pulling his hood back. Everyone said the same thing. You're back. Naruto Pav. Naruto dropped his hood and stood there. Their faces were funny. Sakura was stunned. Hana was happy as hell. Sasuke was pissed. Kurenai was stony-faced. Hinata was nervous. Ino was turned on. And Anko was, well, Anko, crazy and sadistic. Hey Jiraiya, Orochimaru is watching us from a rock outcropping a mile to the east. He said, smiling as the toad Sanin appeared next to him. Okay, I'll take care of him. The man said, disappearing again. So my mission is to bring you guys back alive. Your mission has been ended. Now stay back while I finish this. Sasuke charged the wolf boy, his sword arching for Naruto's head. You might be fast, and you might have a sword, but I am still stronger than you. Naruto said, lazily flicking a slash away from his face. Sasuke launched a flurry of impressive attacks. They were all advanced moves, however Naruto had no problem considering Sasuke sucked and was down to one arm. This only infuriated the Uchiha farther. A few more strokes and Naruto got bored. He ended it by kicking his opponent across the clearing. Sasuke's seal began to grow until he was covered and he had wings. He took off again. Naruto readied his blade when he noticed that he wasn't the target. Hana was. Shit, I'm too far away. Unleash my second form. Sasuke was almost to her when Naruto raised his blade. Roar, burning fang. The sword began to glow and light exploded around Naruto. He brought the sword down and a beam of power cut a deep trench between Hana and Sasuke. Said Snake Boy had to stop to avoid being killed. Everyone looked up. Naruto stood there in feral form. His sword had changed as well. It was now a two-handed sword with a hilt that looked like two wolves, one black and the other white, howling. Your fight is with me, Uchiha. Now prepare to die, he said. He started a series of one-handed hand signs. Fire wolf. Wind wolf. A wolf made of fire and another of swirling air sprouted from his mouth and began to bear down on Sasuke, side by side. The wolf one appeared to be faster as it got to the boy first. Sasuke cut it in half, fire flying by him. The second one, however, did not attack. It exploded, sending currents of air all over the place. It fueled the fire still in the air, and burned all around Sasuke. He jumped back slightly charred but no worse for the wear. Suddenly Orochimaru appeared beside him. We are leaving, he said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Sasuke glared at Naruto and did the same. Well, that was anticlimactic. Naruto said. No shit, Sherlock. Shut up, Fang. Incoming. Say what? All other thoughts were cut off as he was tackled by Hana. Naruto left the Hokage's office after having reported back to Tsunade. He didn't get very far before he was trapped by his favorite bitch. Naruto, how was your training? Hana asked as she fell in beside him. Meh. I learned stuff. Naruto replied. He nearly plowed into a fruit cart at her next question. So when are you taking me on a date? Say wah. Good, meet me at the clan gate at 7, we can go dancing or something, no dinner, I have to eat with mom. She kissed him on the cheek and jumped off towards the Inuzuka compound. That's not right. Springing something like that on a guy. Man, now I have to find something to wear. He thought. Ha ha. She just weaseled you out of your shorts, or at least she will have by tonight. Fang said in chibi form, doing a dance while holding a sign with the word score over his head. You are the weirdest wolf sword thing ever, and she did not. Yep, she did. You know what, I am shutting you out. Naruto said before blocking his connection with the sword. Naruto walked towards the gates. There, standing in some tight jeans, a white top, and a black leather jacket, was his girlfriend. Oh shit. I am so screwed. Naruto thought. Hell yeah you are, is that her me heels I spy? You are so getting laid tonight. Fang said. That is not what I meant and you know it. Geez, you sound like me when I went on my first date with your mother. Just follow my advice and you will get through tonight. He said confidently. Really? You think it will work? Hell no, I messed the first date up so bad, but she thought it was cute. It's the only reason you are alive. Real helpful dad. Hey there, sexy. She said, smiling. He had chosen to wear black pants, a white button up, and a red tie. Hey, so I thought we would go to the Shinobi Club. He sounded unsure of himself. Sounds fun, she said, looping her arm through his. Oh yeah, this date is going to hell in a handbasket. Oh shut up, Scroogy McKilljoy, enjoy the moment, you'll do fine. So how did your training go? She asked as they strolled down the street. Pretty good. Mostly trained by myself or the wolves and made up new techniques, had a few special teachers though. He said. I missed you a lot though. Ah, how sweet. What about Jiraiya of the Toads? Wasn't he training with you? Quote, no, it was mostly by myself or with my trainers till the end where he fine-tuned me, and even then it was hell trying to drag him out of all the brothels and bars. Well, he is a super pervert. I read a few of his books, they were pretty good. She said. Oh damn. Further conversation was ended by their arrival to the club. A quick flash of their shinobi ids and they were in. Naruto saw a few people he knew. He nodded to Shino and Hinata sitting in a booth not far from the door. Shino nodded to Naruto as he passed by. Kakashi was in the corner reading his book and drinking sake. Naruto dropped into a seat where he could see the door. He poured some sake and started to drink when he got a slap on the back. He inhaled the drink and started choking. Once he had cleared his airway, he looked at his attacker. It was Kiba. Hey cuz, what's up? It's good to have you back. He said. Well, I was on a date, but it's good to be back. Naruto replied, giving Kiba the patented scram eyes. Kiba obviously got the message. See you back at the compound, I just wanted to welcome you back. He said quickly before making tracks. He seemed nervous, Hana surmised. You're not the only one with the ability to pull the alpha card on him. Naruto said. Okay stud, you going to dance with me? She said, standing. No, I think I'll let my beautiful girlfriend dance alone in a group full of hormonal guys. Naruto said sarcastically before being dragged by his tie to the dance floor. I like this tie. Hana purred sensually into his neck when they reached the floor. It is almost like a collar. Someone is dominant. Naruto said. Don't you forget it, she said as they started dancing. The night was a rush of color, light, and noise. Naruto was walking Hana back home after dancing. As they reached the gate, Naruto got nervous. Okay cub, like I said, you go in slow, and remember 90/10ths. Not helping. I had a good night, Hana said, smiling up at him. He looked down at her as she looked up at him. 90/10ths, 10 feet. Shut up. She looked so pretty he lost control as something inside him took over. He leaned down and kissed her. I said 90/10ths, not the full 100%, you overzealous son of a. The voice in his head was cut off as Naruto Wolf's senses went wild. He wrapped his arms around Hana and dove to the side. 3 kunai appeared in wall where they had been moments ago. Whatever had taken over earlier was still in control. Naruto stood up as 5 ninja appeared in front of them. They all had sound headbands and outfits. We were sent to kill you so you couldn't interfere in the invasion of sand. The leader said. You tried to hurt my mate and for that you will die. Naruto growled. He let loose all his predatory power in a single burst. The nin that looked into his slitted eyes all froze instantly. The rest of the 4 jumped back as Naruto sent a kunai straight into the paralyzed one's head. The other 4 moved quickly, converging on him, 2 from each side. Naruto dropped into a crouch as Sib appeared from behind him, jumping over him, latching onto one of the enemy's throats. Naruto followed the leap with a diagonal slash from Burning Fang. He caught the middle nin and slit him from crotch to neck. The last two turned to flee but were caught between one pissed-off wolf boy and one angry wolf. They turned back to back and attacked. Naruto grabbed the man's arm and twisted till he dropped his kunai. With his enhanced reflexes, Naruto grabbed it midair and shoved it through the man's chin and int. Oh, his brain. He dropped the man and looked over to see Sib standing on the other nin's corpse. Man, that was close. What the hell was that, Naru? You kiss the girl and totally block out the rest of the world. You almost got skewered. Your instincts are so shot you couldn't hunt down an Oreo cookie. The wolf complained. Dude, who pissed in your Wheaties this morning, princess? We are both still alive. Naruto said, patting the young wolf on the head. Although what he said about the invasion of sand is disturbing. I have to report this to Granny. Hana, Naruto, and Sib stood before Tsunade. It's good to see you again, Naruto, but I doubt this is a social visit. I got a report of a group of nin slipping over the south wall and another one saying 5 dead sound nin found dead in front of the Inuzuka compound. Now I'm not sure, but I think it was you. She said, looking at the young wolf boy. You were right, I killed them. I was just getting back from a date with Hana-chan when they attacked. They said they were assassins from sound to keep me from messing up their invasion of sand. Now, seeing as weak as they were and unprepared, I think the Snake Tem is giving me a message. He wants me to be there at the invasion. Naruto said in a steady voice. I think this is a good summary, therefore we can't send you into a trap. She said. I am the fastest person in the village as well as one of the strongest. You have to send me as backup. He said. Gaara might need my help. The council will never allow it. She sighed. But I do believe I need to send a 2-man squad to Sand to pick up Shikamaru. I think you are the perfect choice. She said, smiling behind her papers. They can't say anything about that because it has nothing to do with war, right? Hana said, smirking at the loophole. Yep, they can't say a thing. Tsunade smiled. I expect you to leave in an hour. Naruto, Sib, Hana, and her triplet stood on a small rock outcropping overlooking the Rain Army surrounding the Suna. At their feet lay a squad of dead Rain Nin. The back guard had failed to impress them. Campfires dotted the desert in front of them. A giant war tent stood at the back to the northeast of the city walls. Already a few dozed corpses from both sides littered the bottom walls of the city. The Rain had obviously gauged the enemy's strength earlier in the day and found that taking the city would be no easy task. Hana turned to the young sage, looking to see what he would do. He pulled the gourd off his back and turned it upside down. Sand began pouring out onto the dune below the rocks. What are you doing? Hana asked him as he threw the gourd back over his shoulder. That sand has been with me for almost 2 years. It has absorbed my chakra while we traveled, and on top of that I poured chakra into whenever we had time to kill. It is so attuned to me that controlling it is almost no problem, and if you control 1 grain of sand, you control the whole desert. Now hold on. He wrapped his arm around her waist and did a series of hand signs. By the time he ended the chain, the sand below the rock was trashing and shuddering as if it were alive. What looked like a wolf rose and crashed back down. The rock tipped slightly to the side as the sand began to climb up the sides. Hana stumbled into Naruto, and in one smooth move he scooped her up bridal style and jumped off the rock. He landed in a crouch, and as his feet touched the sand it shot up 15 feet in the air. Hana looked into his eyes as they turned feral. Yurufu Subararashi. From the top of Suna's walls, Shikamaru stood observing the Rain forces that had set up shop below. He had gotten dragged into the defense planning earlier by his girlfriend. At first the Sand Council had ignored his suggestions, but after Gaara had splattered the loudest protester across most of council room, they had started listening to him. Still, the outlook was not what he would call ideal. There were too many unknowns. With Rain being closed off for so many years, all they had to go by was rumors. His planning could center around year-old knowledge or fairy tales. He would have given his right arm to know what was in that tent leading these soldiers. He started to light his cigarette when all of a sudden from the west a cloud of dust began to rise from the top of a dune. Suddenly a howl broke the silence that lay over the city. He could almost swear the cloud looked like a wolf. The cloud began whipping around the top of the dune before shooting forward towards the city, and thus the rain army. The cloud looked like it was being led by 5 giant wolves made of sand, and this time he knew it was not a trick of the eye. All was dead silent as the wolves bore down on the rain nin. The few that made it out of their tents in time turned to run when it hit the perimeter of their encampment. As it struck, the silence was again broken by what could only be the howling and snarling of a pack of wolves. Smaller wolves rose from the feet of the 5 wolves in the lead and crashed back into the sand around them, sometimes taking tents and men with them. The sound was deafening and the cries of the men could barely be heard above the storm. The wolves kept coming, eventually crashing into the walls. That still was not the end of the storm, as some of the wolves began bounding up the wall, followed by trails sand. Every few seconds one would crash into the wall before dispersing and falling back down into sand until just near the top onl. Why one was left. The only thing different about this one was that its eyes glowed red. It bounded up to the very edge of the wall and jumped up into the air before crashing face first in a cloud of sand on the top of the wall right next to Shikamaru. Shikamaru stood stock still. The only thing that could be seen in the cloud was 2 red eyes. Then an outline. Slowly it dispersed to reveal Naruto holding his mate. The last of the sand returned to Naruto's gourd and he put Hana back down. He then reached over and closed the top on Shikamaru's lighter. He went to say a smartass remark when suddenly he had to jump over a spear made of sand. It stuck in the wall next to him and Naruto put his hand on it and used it to spin diagonally to avoid a second spear. He landed back on his feet and spun on his feet to face his attacker. "What the hell, Gaara?" the young wolf summoner asked. "I knew you would say something stupid, Uzumaki. That is why I cut you off," he said before standing there quietly. Nuff said. "Hey Naruto, good timing," Tamari said from behind him before stepping up and hugging Naruto. He hugged her back before turning to Shikamaru. "Nara Shikamaru, we have been sent by the Hokage to escort you back to the land of fire." Tamari and Shikamaru went to object while Gaara simply quirked an eyebrow. "However, as I feel it is unsafe to leave the city, we have no choice but to stay and aid Suna in any way we can. I knew you would be unable to stay out of a fight, Uzumaki. I will have a room prepared for you in my house," Gaara said as he turned and left. "What would you have me do to aid you defeat the Rain Nin?" Naruto asked. Gaara just continued to walk away. "He knows you be most helpful without any orders. Do what you do best, kick." Tamari replied for her brother before leaving as well. "It's good to see you learned something from your stay in Suna. You always did know how to make an entrance," Shikamaru said, but before he could leave, Naruto put his hand on his shoulder and slowed him down. "You might want to take a shower." Naruto smirked as Hana walked by. "You smell like desert flower." He nodded his head towards Tamari. "But nice going, man, bagging the Kazecage's sister. Just don't make him mad. I don't want to have to scrape what's left of one of my oldest friends off the ground with a spatula." Shikamaru just continued to follow his girlfriend as Naruto ran to catch up with his own mate. "Well, maybe there is some hope of survival." Single quote. "Hey, guys. A little help here," Sib said as he climbed over the wall and fell on his face. Su tired. "I need a summoning scroll like the triplets." He then walked a couple feet and once again fell down. "I'll be right there. Or maybe I'll sleep here. I don't know. Bunch of jerks." Naruto stood on top tier of the wall overlooking the battlefield. He had spent the night preparing for the battle. He didn't know what would happen after this battle. This might be the beginning of the next great shinobi war. He didn't know why Orochimaru wanted him here. He didn't know what to do about any of it. What he did know was that he knew how to fight. Just get through today. Then we take on tomorrow. You were always a little slow on the thinking ahead. Just like your old man. Fang cut in. "Fang, I'm going to need you today. This might get ugly. Of course you're going to need me, I'm amazing. Single quote. Conceited much. He looked over at Hana and watched her readjust her vest. Whatever was going through his mind was cut off as the enemy charged. He had killed more ninja than he had ever seen at one place at one time, and yet they still kept coming. Rain had taken the lower levels, but their assaults on the upper levels had been unsuccessful. He was almost out of kunai and was down to his last 6 shuriken. He loosed them into an oncoming nin's chest before pulling his sword. He killed 2 more when he noticed that they were losing the level they were on as well. The Suna nin were falling back to the next level, but they were open to attack by the oncoming rain nin. Come on. Any rain nin that wants some of the wolf sanin, he yelled. This caught the rain nin's attention as they turned to him and charged. He slashed wildly, but every nin on the level wanted to get some of the action that was the future wolf sanin. He was about to be overwhelmed when suddenly a wave of sand knocked the nin surrounding him down the wall. Gaara slid down beside him and nodded. Naruto smiled as he remembered what Shikamaru had told him this morning. He grabbed his sword in both hands and pointed it at his feet. Burning Fang. He plunged the glowing sword into the wall as it changed. Suddenly a beam of condensed chakra cut the wall at their feet. The pieces in front of them split off and fell to the desert floor below. Gaara quickly slid his own sand down to support the wall. The nin on the lower levels were crushed and the rain fell back to regroup. Gaara simply nodded at Naruto and took off for the other side to make sure it did not fall. Naruto was standing on the edge of the wall as the nin regrouped, and suddenly a single man in a black robe with red clouds walked out and put his hand on the wall to their left. Naruto jumped towards the man when suddenly the wall imploded inwards and everything behind it for 50 yards was blown back. Naruto was knocked back by the wind and landed in the midst of a cloud of sand. He felt another strong force and sand hit him harshly in the face. Akatsuki is here. Damn, I should have known. He was about to jump forward when he heard a noise that brought him to a screeching halt, the sound of Hana crying out in pain. He spun around and jumped through the dust towards her position, killing the few straggling rain nin that hadn't charged for the gap in the wall. He focused on his senses, but the continued attacks from the Akatsuki member kept the dust in the air and made hearing near impossible. He only heard a whimper here and there, but in the rubble and the dust, with the continuous concussive force assaulting his heightened senses, he was disoriented. Then in the dust and blood he caught a hint of his mate's scent and a slight cry of pain. With those 2 simultaneous sensory perceptions, he changed directions and ran all out to his mate. He jumped over a boulder and landed next to Hana. Standing over her was a rain nin with the number 5 on his chest. He was holding a bloody kunai in each hand and was about to cut Hana when he found a sword in his chest. Naruto lifted the man up and threw him from the blade. He looked down and found his mate had several deep painful gashes across her body. Most of them seemed centered on her abdomen and inner thighs. His diagnosis was cut short as his hearing picked up a slight noise in the dust. Well, you took the bait. He turned to find 5 men standing on the rubble around them. One of them dropped 2 of the triplets, both unconscious on the ground. Another threw one tied up and badly bleeding into the heap. Naruto stood calmly with Fang on his shoulder. All 5 of the men felt powerful. We were given the personal order from our god to kill you and your mate. One of them said. On his shoulder was the number 1. I don't know K. He killed you without even blinking. Maybe we should give up on this endeavor and instead find another way to help Pain. The one with a 4 on his forehead said. Nonsense. Yor was the weakest of the 6 and a mindless brute as well. We can handle him. The 6 hands of God are invincible. Number 1 said. Number 4 obviously thought otherwise, but before Naruto could try and sway him, Number 1 attacked. Naruto threw the last of his kunai at the charging man and stood ready. The nin ducked them and charged Naruto from the front. Naruto swung his sword diagonally from the hip with one hand. The rain nin jumped back and was replaced by a nin with a 2 on her neck. The nin tried to drive his knife into Naruto's diaphragm but was unsuccessful as the young wolf boy used the momentum of his swing to spin sideways just out of the way of the blade. In return, he knocked the nin's arm away with his free hand and drove his elbow into the woman's nose, throwing her RDS through the dust. A third nin, this time with a 5 on his stomach, tried to stab Naruto in the back, only to be knocked away with the flat of Naruto's blade. He flew into a nearby boulder and the sound of his spine snapping could be heard all around the clearing. Naruto looked at the hesitant number 4 and stabbed his sword into the ground. You're the smart one in the group. Your only mistake was your company, and hurting my mate. The first in's easily fixed by you leaving. The second I cannot let go unpunished. With that, Naruto threw his right arm forwards and a battle chain slid from around his arm and stuck in the man's neck. The barbs snapped into place and Naruto tugged on it and pulled the nin to him. He then used the body to knock away an attack by the female nin. He pulled back on the chain and used the mont's dead body to block kunai from number 1. He threw the body away and grabbed the other end of the chain. Naruto twirled the chain around and blocked a series of shuriken from the broken nose ninja. He stopped and pulled the chain taut and used it to deflect a punch. He wrapped it around the girl's wrist and spun around. He twisted the chain around her neck and pulled tight. She scrabbled with her free hand to loosen the chain, but after a few seconds of struggling she fell to her knees. A little bit more and her arm fell to her side. Naruto pushed her down on a rock and slid his hands into a better position. He put his knee in her back and pulled until he heard a satisfying snap as her neck twisted beyond its limit. He dropped the chain and stood behind his sword. That was not very nice. Just letting her die like that, he said as he ducked under some kunai. She deserved it. She ran right in when that had already proven useless. The voice of number 1 came from all around in the dust. She should have stayed hidden. Quote, hide from a wolf. Not a chance. He was startled from his revelry as he was forced to duck under some incoming kunai behind him. Then suddenly some more from his 9 feet clock. He continued to dodge, unable to pinpoint his enemy's location. Finally he heard the slightest of sounds just in time for a stream of fire came at Naruto from out of the dust. He ducked down behind his sword. The fire was curling around the edges of the sword and singing his clothes. Hana looked at him through the haze of pain and he just winked at her. Naruto reached behind the small of his back. He pulled out a demon wind shuriken in each hand and with a flick of his wrists opened them. Without warning, streams of fire came from his sides and converged on him. His eyes opened wide before he was engulfed by flame. Hana whimpered as he was cooked. The jutsu from the front ended while the two at the sides continued. Hana couldn't believe what she had just seen. Her mate had just been fried. She lay back against a rock and waited for the nin to finish her as well. Just as she felt a tear begin to leave her eye, she saw a distortion a few feet behind the enemy nin. The flames stopped and the nin and 2 clones walked out of the mist. Without warning, Naruto appeared behind the nin and threw both shuriken. The rain nin saw that the space behind the sword was empty and jerked around to find his opponent when they hit. He never saw what cut him in thirds. You're very sneaky and your use of clones made it all the harder to pinpoint your location. However, you can't play hide and seek with a wolf, you get eaten. He said before walking over and checking on Hana. I thought you were dead. She hissed while he inspected her wounds. You can't get rid of me that easily. Naruto smirked as he wrapped a bandage around her thigh. A noise came from behind them and Naruto swung around with a kunai in each hand. Out of the dust stepped Sib and the injured triplet. Where were you, Mutt? Naruto asked, going back to his wounded mate. Man, you can't count very well. You missed one. I had to take care of him. Sib said, walking over to the now conscious triplets. I knew you would handle him, but was it really that hard? Yes, and it would have been harder had Cho not gotten him by the balls. He replied while he licked their wounds.